Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this Uplift webinar, 7 Steps to Startup Sales Success. For transparency, this session is being recorded for future generations to marvel over. I'm Alastair, co-founder of the Uplift Partnership and your host for this session. My background is 25 years in business development, running professional services teams and building technology products. And I'm joined today by my co-founder and partner in crime, Kiran Gill.
Hi everybody, my name's Kiran. I've got 20 years worth of experience frontline sales. So I've done a lot of jobs there, sales operations. I've also done sales management, also frontline sales and business development as well.
Thanks, Kiran. We create sustainable performance in sales by combining our expertise in business, sales, coaching, and technology. And we're also a certified B Corp in the UK. We're very excited today to talk you through our 7 steps for startup sales success. And Kiran, maybe you could, before we show those 7, talk a little bit about why we came up with that and how these steps came about.
Of course, Alastair. Yeah, it's really the 7 steps comes out of several years worth of work, actually. So before Alastair and I both got together and started talking about, what were the fundamentals for companies to do when it came up to their sales processes and how do companies become more successful? There were a lot of research went into this, and going through the years of working with lots of different companies around the globe, I realized that the companies that were being super successful were doing things in a particular way. And there were certain principles and certain fundamentals that they had in place that lots of other companies that were finding it more difficult just didn't have. And when Alastair and myself got together a few years ago to start the Uplift Partnership, we started discussing these in more detail. And this has now come out into the 7 steps, where we've built this framework with 52 different points and brought it all together within this 7-step process to help companies become more successful, especially companies that are just starting up, who are understanding what to do and where it comes from. So a lot of time spent on this, Alastair, as you would think.
Yeah, and distilling down work with companies like Simplifies, Optima Consulting, and others in that startup space, and many more. Without further ado, here are the 7: sales strategy, team structure, tech stack, lead generation, deal closing, customer success, and crucially, continuous improvement. Those are the 7. And what we're going to do now is move through each of those steps and pick out a sub point and just chat about it for a couple of minutes. So we'll look at each section, tell you why it's important, and pick something out as we move around that wheel and just start to bring that to life a little bit more. So that first section is sales strategy. And these bullets are the areas that we see as critical inside sales strategy. One's highlighted here. Kiran, you're going to talk to us a little bit about ideal customer profile. Why have you picked that in sales strategy?
Well, when it comes to sales strategy, these are all important, the ones that you can see on the screen. But when it comes to ideal customer profile or ideal customer profiles, it's somewhere that you really do see that companies do lack the kind of the specialized or the expertise of building a proper customer profile. The better this is, and the more kind of strategic and more targeted this is, the better your sales results will be. And for some reason, a lot of the companies that we've worked with that have been finding this difficult kind of cut over these parts and don't actually go into detail when it comes to their ideal customer profile. They kind of make out that they know what their ideal customer profile is, they know who they're selling to, but when you really start scratching away at the surface, you suddenly realize it's very generic. So when we talk about ideal customer profile, what we want to see here from a startup, and this is, if you've got your own startup, this is where you should be going, is It really needs to be detailed. You need to get down to the fundamentals of what that ideal customer looks like. So where are they located? How big is their company? How many people should there be in a certain department, depending on what you're selling? So your service, your solution, your product, whatever it is, has to fit that demographic perfectly. And the more and more concise you can be with the information you build with your ideal customer profile, the better you're targeting. The better you're targeting, that means then you can speak to that person directly. And that feeds into the rest of the 7 steps. So getting this right and doing this up front and doing the hard work really pays off in the long term.
And if I was a startup founder or running sales at a startup today and I didn't have one, how long should it be? How many pages? What kind of format? What should it look like?
Realistically, try to get it down on 1 page of A4 to start with. You can go into a lot more detail, like most things can. But remember, different ideal customer profiles for different products could exist, also for different target markets. So your ideal customer profile for a customer in Europe might look slightly different to one that's based in Africa, or different to the ones in the Americas. So, but the fundamentals will all be the same. So try to get it onto 1 piece of paper, or 1 piece of A4 paper, or 1 screen, or Word or Google Sheets, or whatever you use, and try to get it down onto there, and just start with the basics, and just get that down, and then try to get it into more and more detail if you can, because it just helps your marketing team, your lead generation team, your marketing collateral. It just helps define all of that better to getting this right.
And like most things in work and life, the more effort you put in, the more you get out, and you'll end up discussing it and refining it and improving it. So yeah, absolutely crucial part of sales strategy. Let's move on to section 2, which is team structure. 7 bullets here that we see as absolutely fundamental. You've highlighted today sales organization setup. Why have you picked that?
So like any good organization or team, you need to have people doing different roles. Now, if you're a startup, you probably started off with a very small team and lots of people doing different roles. And we've run into that multiple times, Alastair, as we've always have, where people are doing different jobs. However, when you start building your sales organization, you need to start thinking about what roles and what will people be doing within that team. So the way I like to set it up, and this is your basics. Remember, this is your fundamentals. This is your foundation. That's what we're talking about here today. What you really need, you're going to start off with, is probably a salesperson. And that salesperson is probably going to be your key account person. That's the person who's going to be closing the deals. Now, you might then want to add a SDR to that. That's a sales development representative, who is basically there to feed or build leads. After that, you can start thinking about sales management, bringing a sales manager in, going to do all these, at that time, you're probably going to get you're the account manager if you're a founder-led company. Then you're probably building all these processes. You can then start thinking about bringing in sales management. Then after that, once you've got a few customers, you then start thinking about customer success managers. Now, these are the people who are going to help retain your customers. And then, and who knows in which order you're going to do this, but then at some point you might start thinking about a pre-sales person. That's if you're in selling solutions. So you might have somebody who's there who's very technical, helping you to sell your technical solution to customers. And possibly you might even be integrating parts of marketing into there. So this is your full team, your stack of people that are going to help. Now, and these roles could be split. You might have one person who's doing a bit of this, a bit of that at the time. However, over a period of time, what you're hoping to do is grow the sales organization to be very, very kind of clear in what their goals and targets are. So your sales manager's leading a team of account executives. You've got a cluster of SDRs, sales development guys who are feeding your account executives, and around that you've got your customer support people, your pre-sales people, all feeding in. So this team is your organization, and having them define the descriptions helps you become more successful. And if you can get this done very early on, it just helps you be more successful quicker. once you start moving.
Yes, and beautifully articulately put, my friend, and that kind of growth about what you need to bring in and how you grow. And if you're a founder right at the beginning of your journey, we're working with a health tech startup at the moment, and it's pretty much just the founder doing sales. But she does have a couple of other people, not necessarily in the organization, who are helping her out with other jobs. She's got some virtual assistants who are helping with some SDR work. So even she's on her own, she's still able to outsource some of those jobs and kind of create a team and then wear different hats herself. So I think thinking about it in different hats and different roles, even if it's just you, is a good way to get that process going. Thank you, my friend. Let's move on to section 3, which is the tech stack. 6 really important parts inside the tech stack here. And the one that I'm going to pick out and talk about is the website. I've spent many decades building, deploying, operating, optimizing websites for sales. And the reason I've picked the website is because it is effectively your HQ, digital or otherwise. It's the headquarters where you want to drive people to. You want to drive traffic there because that's where your buyers are going to read about you, make contact, and potentially book meetings. So driving traffic there is absolutely essential. It's essential that you've got the right SEO practices in place so people can get to your website, and that that's then feeding into your content generation engine with blog posts. It's also where you're articulating really the value proposition and your copy around those words. And it's essential that every page, in fact, every section on your website has a very clear call to action that starts with a verb, encouraging buyers to take further action to learn more about you or perform some action to get in touch with you. It's also where your website's also where you're connecting your email marketing, so your newsletter connection through MailChimp or what else, you're managing your email lists. And so it is absolutely the fundamental cornerstone, really, of your tech stack, that you have a functioning, high quality website. Before we move on, anything you'd like to add, Kiran, and on that tech stack and that website piece?
Well, it's more of a question for you, Alastair. So how important is a well-defined customer, ideal customer profile for you if you were designing a website?
Well, yeah, absolutely critical, because I want to be able to look specifically, I'd start with a landing page. So if you're running a campaign and going after ideal customer profile 2, say, then the landing page from that campaign on your website's got to be tailored, not just to reflect the creative and the copy from the campaign, but also to engage directly and specifically with ideal customer profile number 2. And then their journey from that landing page into the rest of the website needs to be smooth as well, so they can get to other collateral and continue their journey. So these things are all tied up. A website, absolutely critical. The 4th step around the wheel is lead generation. And we've picked out people here, absolutely critical. Kiran, tell us, let's start, what's an SDR?
So we touched on this in section number 2, where I was talking about your team. So an SDR is a very specialist role. It's probably really come to it's quite a big role now, but 5-6 years ago, it was very American side of things, but we're now catching up in Europe. An SDR is a sales development representative. These people are lead generation experts. That's what they're there for. They are basically finding leads for your account executives to close. And their jobs they're very social. They tend to be social selling, so they're spending a lot of time on social networks. But they're also doing, normal networking, and they're also thinking about how to find customers in different places. So, whether it's events, whether it's networking, whether it's social, whether it's wherever it is, their job is to make sure that they're targeting the right people and they're bringing those people in. They are very specialist. They tend to be more junior, and these people will hopefully in your organization end up being your account executives in the future. So it's a great place to bring in juniors, get them up to speed, and then push them into the main role of selling or closing. And the great thing about SDRs is it's a fast moving role. They are really, really generating leads and having multiple conversations at times, and then moving on and hot leads to your account executives.
And for founders who feel like they're doing all of the sales function themselves, and they're not sure what to do next in order to generate leads and drum up business, doing a bit more research about what an SDR should be doing day to day and putting that hat on would be a great place for founders to go to. So yeah, look, thanks for that. Really, really interesting again that we're kind of coming back to picking on the people, because that's how it goes. And what we found is that even if you're not super confident or comfortable with posting original posts on social media, actually a crucial part of the SDR is commenting and being part of the conversation that's happening online in order to work the LinkedIn algorithm or others, so that you're attracting comments and likes and feedback from others, and you're part of the discussion, part of the sales discussion around your particular industry. So that SDR role, really critical. Let's move on to the next section on the wheel, which is number 5. Deal closing, absolutely crucial and a big favorite of ours. Why have you picked process from this long list, my friend?
We could go into all of these, couldn't we? Talking about the 52, you could go into all of them because they're all interesting for a sales nerd like myself. But if you think about process is the fundamental when it comes to closing, that you have a process in place, that you know how to close. So what happens when your SDR or whoever generates a lead and it's time to do, you'll put them through a process. Now, if your process is random, you might do different things for different customers. The more structured or the more dynamic your process tends to be, where it's been actually formally documented, the better it is. So what we want to see here is that you've actually thought about your process. When you get a customer, what happens? What happens to you when you get a prospect in? What do you do? What is the things that you will do at that first stage, in that prospecting stage? What happens when they go into the second stage of your sales process? Now, that might be depending on how you've structured your sales process, and maybe you haven't, or maybe you have and it's just basic. But what happens when they go into qualification or whatever you call it, discovery, some companies call it. And then discovery, what happens after that? Do you go to present? Do you go to sending a contract? How do you do that? And it's all the way along the line. The documentation and the process, the easier it is to find where the problems are. Nothing's perfect. So what you're looking for is you document the process, you put people through the process, and you might find that there might be bottlenecks within that process. And as the bottlenecks turn up, you're able to resolve those. And you'll find there are other problems, but what you want to do is keep to a process. And depending on what you're selling, who you're selling it to, where you're selling it, you'll have different processes. So somebody who's buying from you directly on the net, from the web, might have one process. Somebody that you're selling to face-to-face might have a different process. So you might have multiple sales processes working at the same time. And your job as a sales expert or a sales manager within your company is to make sure that the right customer is in the right place in the right process, and the right things are being done for that person to make sure that the sale happens.
Working with a lot of founders, we've discovered that there can be a bit of reluctance about kind of formalizing. They feel like they're doing the right things at the right time, and they kind of inherently feel like they know what's next. And actually, it's been quite challenging to get them to see the value of putting a more formalized structured process in place. But once they do that and they have the right steps, then actually that stimulates discussion about, well, is this opportunity in step one or step two? And then how should their behavior and their approach be tailored to that opportunity once it's in a different stage? Actually, it feels like it's kind of could be considered a waste of time, but actually that formalization then stimulates discussion and more rigor and a better all-round approach to sales. So yeah, we've seen lots of founders benefit from creating that process in how they go about closing their opportunities. Wonderful. Well, and once that opportunity has landed and the buyer's on board and they're a paid up customer, which is fantastic, that's what we're driving towards, then it's about how do we ensure that they are a successful customer for the business, which moves us into section 6, around the wheel, customer success. And we've picked marketing collateral to focus on, and that is something that I'm particularly passionate about, trying to ensure that even though they're now a customer, they've not been forgotten about, and they're being treated in exactly the same way as they would be before closing, in terms of sharing great content and thought leadership with them, and the kinds of themes that you might consider using to engage customers who are existing customers is maybe looking at the ongoing struggles they have in their marketplace, looking at the real problems that they face on a day-to-day basis, what's keeping them awake at night, and trying to empathize with those struggles, and bringing humor in. Another theme of marketing collateral you might use for existing customers is the desires. Where do they want to be? What's the potential that they could unlock in their current role, using your product or service? So that's about thinking about what ideal customer profile are they, what are their dreams and desires, and again, using real life stories to try and engage them and keep them abreast of what your products and service could do in terms of achieving their desires. And then another theme which might feel quite obvious is talking about your product. So new features and benefits that are coming out in your product, or new elements of your service, testimonials, case studies from other existing customers, which might spark new ways for them to engage and either upsell or cross-sell them. So creating really good marketing collateral for existing customers is really important. The 7th and final step is continuous improvement. 4 bullets inside this section. Why have you picked sales pipeline analysis, my friend?
So if we think about the 7 steps, what we've done now, and if you've gone through, I know we've picked out certain points of the 7 steps and spoken only about 1 or 2 things as we've gone around, but if you've done this correctly, or you're all doing this, if you have got a company and you're selling something, you're going to have data, and that data turns into your sales pipeline. Now, you will find, like I said in the section about deal closing, that you might have bottlenecks within your process. And this is a great place where you, in continuous improvement, what you're trying to do, the 7th and the final step that brings you back around, what you're trying to do here is to analyze your data and to make sure that you understand what's happening. So have you got enough leads coming in? Now, you might not have enough leads coming in, and the reason that might be is because your ideal customer profile isn't strong enough, or you're not targeting the right people. So you can do something about it. And this is why your sales analyzing your sales plan is so important, because what you will do once you have the data, you will see, depending on your solution, depending on what you're selling to different markets, because you will have multiple pipelines, you will start seeing anomalies or problems. And your job as a sales manager or as a founder is to make sure that you deal with these so that it can be as fluid as possible, that your sales pipeline isn't getting stuck in places, and that you're addressing problems before they happen. So that's why, as in continuous improvement, I think your sales pipeline analysis is probably one of the most important things that you should be doing at all times.
Yeah, thank you. So to go back to the 7 steps, the way we kind of think about it is that those first 3 set the foundations, the sales strategy, getting the right team in place, and the tech stack. And the next 3 are really the execution of your sales function and how it should operate. So generating leads, closing deals, and ensuring customer success. And then the 7th, continuous improvement, is about refining, improving, and optimizing those previous 6, and ensuring that you're reviewing on a regular basis and improving. So that's it, a kind of a whistle-stop tour around the 7 sections. And we've picked 7 out there. There's 52 that sit under the 7. And actually those 52 and those 7 sections are also the cornerstone or the backbone of our 360-degree sales diagnostic that we run. And we sit down with clients for a one-on-one, an hour's one-on-one, and it's a Q&A session. After that, we combine insights from this session and our desk research to create a detailed 360-degree sales diagnostic score. And based on our assessment, we make tailored recommendations in the areas we believe will make the most impact to your business. And after you've received that report, we follow up with a 60-minute show and tell to talk through that and any questions you've got. If you head over to the upliftpartnership.com/360, you can sign up and start moving towards your own score today. We're taking increasing numbers of startups through the 360. It's getting smoother and slicker. We're enjoying it and loving seeing the results of producing a score for a startup, and then our recommendations about what they should do next, either themselves, with somebody else, or with us. So take a look at that. And our next live event will be the next recording of the Sales Scoop podcast, which is happening 2 weeks today on the 12th of September. Our focus 2 weeks today is startup sales goals. So we're looking at that sales strategy, specifically overall sales goals, and how startups and sales leaders can set themselves up for success. So it's the same time, 2 weeks today. You'll be able to find that event on LinkedIn after this webinar's finished. And really, that's us. We're coming to the end of our half hour. Timed it very nicely. Thank you, Kiran, for all of your insights and thoughts and choosing those 7 inside the 52. Any final words from you, my friend?
No, if there's any questions, or if you want any more information, or just to have a chat about where you are, please reach out to either myself or Alastair. Always happy to talk about anything about sales, and anything I can help with. Always happy to give you a guiding kind of information or anything that you need. But other than that, Alastair, no. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for tuning in and watching, everybody, in the comments on LinkedIn. It's been a great half hour. I hope that made sense in terms of the 7 steps for startup sales success. We'll see you for our next live event in 2 weeks. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, Kiran.
Bye.